Kia ora everybody and welcome back to Epic Aotearoa Create a Better Future podcast. Man, I'm back here, fortunate to reconnect with my brother Brian Osman, who's over in Australia. This session is a bit of a catch-up, actually, just to talk a bit about what's been happening recently with regards to not only the new series, but how things are going and what some of our plans are moving forward based on the great feedback and support that we've been receiving and some of the stuff that we've just unpacked and discovered while we were off air for a little bit. So maybe we'll jump in and start with the last little piece that we spoke about, B. So we had, Brian and I was, as I mentioned to Brian, I was spitting out dribble, and then it's Brian's job. It's Brian's job to translate the dribble that's coming out of my mouth, from my mind to my mouth onto the microphone. And then Brian does a great job of formalizing that and putting it into a structure that we can then, hopefully other people can comprehend. So basically, I was speaking about the amazing work that Brian does with regards to building teams, working with teams, helping create effective teams of people, small teams who are capable of completing any task, a variety of tasks. And I said, man, it would be great to, you package that up and let's add that, because that adds to creating a better future, blah, blah, blah. And then Brian very quickly put all of that into structure and said, what you're talking about is, and then I'll let you finish it off. So go.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Joe.
You're welcome.
But this is actually really cool, because what we were talking about is this thing that we've been doing, but we probably haven't really noticed it. But we've been doing it since we started this whole idea of Epic Aotearoa, creating a better future, and that's testing an idea, learning from it, pivoting if we need to, or persevering with our direction. And we were just talking about the recent series that Joe has been doing with the Who Dares Win in the Service of Others, and which has been fantastic. I mean, it's just not just in terms of the amount of views or likes or whatever that is. It's just the engagement that you brought through and the stories that have come to surface. So that's what we were talking about, and it's just led on to this, which has created another idea, and that's the whole point, is that we create these ideas so that we can explore where these other stories lay. And I think that leadership and building, so watch the space, because Aotearoa, we're going to explore leadership and team building alongside the Who Dares Wins in the Service of Others. So we will have multiple tracks. In fact, we may even have up to 3 tracks, I reckon, of different series going, because people will resonate in different ways with different things. And
True.
So appreciate that pass, Joe. That was like,
yeah, it's pretty good, eh? It's a
it was
good one.
good. I didn't even see it coming. Like, oh.
And I see how you just floated to that and then gave it the structure around the dribble that was coming out of my mouth. So thank you for that. So yes, we've morphed, and we're adapting, and we're building and adding more tools to the podcast. And I love how you explained that the vision is the same. The vision is to create a better future, to help our listeners, our audience, create a better future, to provide tools and resources through the power of this podcast, and linking people to other powerful podcasts and information and resources and individuals that they can connect with, in order to grab what they can and apply it and adapt it to their own for their own needs and own use, to create that better future for them. And so this leadership and team building series, which you kindly put together after I was speaking, really makes sense, and it aligns perfectly, as you mentioned, with the overall view and vision to create a better future.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were just talking off air, and we were talking about teams, and we bandied that term around a lot. And g'day team, or morning team, or team. Yeah.
Come on, team. Here we go, team. Yeah.
But you can't, and you see this I see this in corporate world and stuff. We talk about teams, but you can't just throw a random group of people, and you know this in your time in the military. It's like, you can't throw a random group of people together and expect them to operate like a team or be a team.
Correct.
Yeah, and there's a great quote you shared from Simon Sinek.
So I'll share that again. So from Simon Sinek, I saw this, and I just really resonated with it immediately, because in the unit, in the military, you refer to each other and the group of people that you're with as teams. And that's because there's an underlying and very prominent and very powerful value that connects and binds, in my experience, those particular teams and groups of people together, and that's trust. And so the quote from Simon Sinek was along the lines of, a team is not a group of people that work together. A team is a group of people that trust each other. And that really, when I read that, just really resonated with me, because as I spoke with you, which I'll mention here, and some of my colleagues and stuff from work may or may not listen to this podcast, but they already know where I'm coming from because I've shared this quote with them. But also in my work where I am, sadly and unfortunately at this stage, we're not a team. We're a group of people that are working together. We've got good intentions. We're trying to do our best. But what we lack as a group, and this is myself as well, so I'm either projecting whereby my team members feel like they probably either can't trust me, but I certainly feel like there are members of the group of people that I'm with that I can't trust. So I don't refer to the people that I'm with as a team. I'll say, hi all, or hello everybody, if I'm sending a group communication to this group of people that's meant to be a team. But we're just not there yet. That's just been my honest perception of that. And I've been fortunate, I've shared that with the people that I'm lucky enough to work with. Great people, very good people, caring people, particularly for the space that we're in. But are we a team? Do we trust each other? At this stage, no, we don't. So I'm very selective, for me personally, about how and where I use that term. What about yourself, B?
Oh, this is a great point. It was something that I guess it was in the back of my mind, but it annoyed me. Like, and I didn't find a way to really articulate why this was, other than the fact that I think we throw people together, random people, and you expect them to be high performing, and it doesn't work that way. I've been with sports teams that had high functioning individuals, but they weren't a team. They were out for themselves, or there was the lack of trust, and I couldn't think of the word that would really underpin it. But you've nailed it. It's that trust that pulls it together. So this is something we really want to explore in that space, is because how do we get those stories about leadership and teams, because they're intertwined, interconnected, interdependent on each other. Because the lessons that you learn from the military, lessons that you learn from sports, or places where there are a group that trusts. I can imagine in the health sector, for those on the front line, especially when this whole COVID thing over the last 18 months, if there wasn't a functioning team, it's probably got pretty close. It must have, particularly the high stress environment that they must have worked in to some extent.
Yeah,
it'd be amazing to explore that as well. So there's evidence of great teams out there. It's just now, how do we take those lessons and then be able to turn that into something that everyone else can tap into, and not just go, oh, we work in government and we use the word team, therefore we're high performing. And no disrespect to government, but it's like, it's so
generic, very generic.
So generic, yeah. And it's bandies around. It's annoying.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And you know what? This sort of segues potentially nicely into the other stuff that we're talking about, because we're talking about, as you mentioned, in the service of others, Who Dares Win series, and some of the things that came up out of that, and just talking about the teams. And Bill Bestick, great man, shared in a part of his conversation that I was lucky enough to facilitate with him about George Gregan. And there was a piece there where he read where George Gregan said, when I'm under the posts with his players, with his teammates, he can speak to his players and his team in a certain way. But, he's gone on to be very successful in business outside of rugby, but he can't speak that way, or he mentioned along the lines of he can't speak that way to people outside of that, in the business world. Like it wouldn't go down very well, was sort of what I was picking up from what Bill was saying. And Bill also, sort of in the same conversation at some point, talked about how great it would be if you could grab that culture that as he talked about, that already existed when him and I were going in and going through that process within the SAS as an example, how great it would be if you could grab that culture and put that into business, put that into corporate, put that into whatever industry that you're in, and help that flourish, because everybody, like Bill said, in that unit is striving for excellence. Nobody's special. Nobody's particularly more talented than the others. Don't get me wrong, there are some people that are quite talented, but there are things, all of the parts that help you become a better operator, you can learn. And you learn through repetition, and you learn through just over and over again. And he used the example of the amount of rounds put down range, 10,000 9mm rounds.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Blatted off in 35 minutes or an hour and a half, whatever it was. And that's just constant. Yes, you become a much better shot as a result. You become much quicker with your draw. You become much quicker with your stoppages. You become much better overall with regards to that. And so the part that I wanted to get to, which I didn't touch on with Bill, but I've touched on it with you, it really made me reflect. I remembered it while Bill was speaking at the time, but I didn't want to jump in because he was in such a good flow with everything. So I was really trying to not jump in too much. And what stuck out to me, and then I forgot it as he was going along, was when he spoke about how good it would be if he could transfer that culture into other businesses. It made me think about that trust aspect again and how we developed that. And it made me think about his comments about George Gregan, speaking to his teammates under the post. He can speak to them a certain way. He can be very direct. He can be very, and none of them take it like to heart. None of them get upset and go, "Oh, he just told me off," and they go storming off the field. Like, they suck it up, they take it on, they understand where it's coming from. And it made me think about the CQB course. So Bill touched on at the end the close quarter battle course. It's sort of part of the CT phase of the cycle, and you are put in situations where you're having to bash each other, right? You're in the middle, you and one of your closest mates, that you're standing there toe to toe, and you've got to bash each other. And you come away with some pretty bad injuries. Guys will have broken noses, you get the black eyes, some guys got missing teeth, your body's banged up and sore. You don't go, and you potentially, if you're not careful, you could potentially end somebody's process on cycle if you give them a really bad injury. So we're not striking the knees, we're not gouging eyes or striking the throat or anything like that, although those are parts of the course which you're taught and those sorts of things. But when you're sparring or milling, whatever you want to call it, you're not looking to permanently damage your mate, because blink and heck, you're going to ruin their chances of being able to continue on the cycle. Or potentially longer term. So, but you're tuning each other up big time. And I know I copped quite a lot of hidings from the guys there. I tried to give as good as I got, but to the point of when Bill was talking about that, the reason that for me anyway, the reason that I trusted the guys was, man, we would bash each other. We would come away with these injuries, and then at the end of the day, like, we're sitting in the mess, we joke around laughing, or again, "Far, you got me a good one here," and then be like, "Oh, what about you?" Yeah, like eyes sticking out here, bruises, cut lips,
fat nose,
fat nose, broken nose, and then guys going, "Yeah, well, but what about you? Blinking busted my tooth," or all these sorts of things, and we would laugh, and then we'd move on because we knew this was part of the job. And one of the things that stuck out for me on that course was that you were left in the middle to fight, and if you didn't fight hard and well enough, the fight just kept going. The DS didn't stop it. Like, and they'd be telling you, probably one of the few times where they'd perhaps be a bit more verbal, unlike selection, where you needed to get stuck in, and if you didn't get stuck in, well, then the fight just went longer. Even to the point that you either fought, and you fought hard until it was stopped, or you were just made to keep fighting. And even then, if you ended up, say I'm on the receiving end and I can't fight back anymore, even then you're still expected to fight. You're still expected to just show some ticker and some heart, and you keep going. You're getting smashed. It's obvious, the other person in this particular round has smashed you, they've caught you a good one, like whatever, but I don't care. You need to show us that you're still prepared to fight, because when it comes down to it and what we were preparing for, as Bill talked about, we were preparing for war. We were preparing for battle. You're not preparing to go and play pinochle. You know what I mean? So it was those memories, as Bill was speaking, that just really triggered, and I thought, far out. That's just one tool, one aspect in terms of how and why, for me anyway, why my trust was built. Now, do I think that will work in a corporate setting? Hey, today, everybody,
let's try it.
We're going to bash each other, all right? Let's make a circle here. Just move that board table out of the road. Let's create a big circle. Right. Sue, you're with Johnny. Yep, you two get in the middle and go. Yeah, so that's probably not gonna fly, but
you could try.
Yeah, you could try. Probably definitely not going to fly with regards to that setting, but I share that not because I'm saying that's what people should do, but these are some of the, I guess, the unique elements of what make up that type of unit, and why, in my opinion, it's been so successful. That's just one piece which people don't see or people don't know. Like, you bash each other, or you're fighting each other, and you're using and looking to apply the techniques in a way that you've been taught, short of not permanently damaging or injuring somebody on your cycle.
Do you, bro, do you have gloves? Do you wear gloves, or do you have padding or anything? Or just
no, we had no gloves. So you just your bare hand. Very rare from my recollection, like a lot of palm strikes and edge of the hand.
Okay.
We were very careful in terms of we didn't go elbowing each other in the head, because we weren't looking to do that. And if we were throwing kicks and knees and stuff, they were delivered with a bit more control, so to speak. So the hands and stuff you let fly, and so that's where a lot of the damage and stuff was done. There's a lot of the boys are headhunters, right? And we had a few guys that were very, very handy with their hands as well. Tor is the surname of one of the guys. Blanket, awesome, a gun boxer. You know what? Actually, I don't think I ever had to go in the circle against him, which I was stoked about. I was like, he's shorter, and he was a smaller built than I was. Not that I'm anything huge, but I was bigger and broader than him. But man, I was very quietly satisfied and pleased that I never
relieved.
Relieved. That's the word, relieved, that I didn't end up in the circle with him, because man, I would have got tuned up. But great guy, awesome guy. So I hope to have him on the podcast. But just reflecting on that as Bill was speaking, and that culture and that trust came, man, and it came in spades, and it was given back in spades. So that for me has always resonated. The trust aspect is what sets the foundation and underpins the quality of the team, because if you trust everybody in that group, you're connected to them in a way that I've not felt in other environments, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and these are great points, because like you see it on, like over here there's the SAS Australia, the reality show, which I think we've kind of touched on. Bill touched about it.
Was it the rugby league player Sam Burgess, who won it or something?
Yeah, he won it. Yeah, he was a unit, bro.
Yeah,
it was hardcore. But all those, they got to the end. I forget, 3, 4, might have been 3 or 4. They got to the end.
Yep.
But he was the only one that passed it.
Yeah.
So the others completed, but he passed it because he just showed that little bit extra, the 1%ers as they were talking, the DS were talking about. But they have the same thing.
Yeah.
Where they're going at each other, but of course, being civilians, headgear, gloves, it's the big gloves. So
did they? They had the stuff in that on? Right, yeah.
Yeah. So they're going at it, but, you could tell whoever landed the first punch, they got the momentum, so, they were able to adapt. So I was thinking, okay, you guys do that, but obviously not. If you're bare knuckle and it's just boom at it, that's a lot more intense than with gloves and headgear. So, not to take anything away from them, though. Yeah,
definitely not. It's still tough. Like, I've done sessions with the headgear, with shin pads, with elbow pads and gloves and stuff on, and you still come away beat up and sore. So 100%. So from the cycle that I was on, I don't remember. We weren't wearing any headgear, and we didn't have any gloves.
But it's not the same time like Bill was talking about. when you're practicing the I think it was CT stuff, and you're in the elevator shaft. Just jump, just grab the cable.
So, you know what? I think because I think I might have seen there's a New Zealand series out. I'll have to go back and have a look. It's been a while since I've seen it. I think it was First Among Equals was the where they've sort of opened up the media. The media has much more, or has been granted a lot more access to those sorts of environments and special forces units around the world, not just New Zealand, but around the world. So you see a bit more, and I'm pretty sure I remember seeing part of the CQB where they may have had headgear and stuff on. But again, you know, the guys that Bill spoke about, AJ and a few other guys, I don't know if he mentioned some of that, so I'll play it safe and won't mention some of the other names, but they know who they are. Maybe it was just that mindset, like we weren't wearing headgear, we weren't wearing gloves, we just bashed each other with our bare hands, with what we had, and we were in our DPM trousers, t-shirt, boots on, and you got stuck. And I think probably we might have just I don't remember us having our webbing and stuff on. We might have, but I for the most part, I'm pretty sure it's just the trousers, t-shirt, boots, and get stuck in. So but it was great. It was great times. Not great at the time when you're getting bashed and you're coming away looking at yourself in the mirror and going, "Oh, far out, look at my face." But those moments after, you knew that the boys had your back because you knew who would keep fighting regardless. And in my experience, every single one of them would just keep fighting. Didn't matter. Until they were stopped, then they kept fighting, no matter how pathetic or weak we looked and felt at the time. But it's been really good.
You weren't like, I'm assuming, Joe, that after all this time...
You know what happens when we assume.
Yes, we do. But I'm assuming that all your punches were straight jabs and hooks, none of this flailing arms stuff.
Well, you know what? I like to think and hope that I wasn't flailing arms. So I like to. The vision that I have in my mind is that I was floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee. But really, I might have been flopping around like a fish out of water and slapping like a blinking flailing arms. Whatever, I can't think of a cool analogy to try to describe it, but you know what I mean. So what I have in my head of how I may have been performing during that part of the course may be very different to reality. So I don't know if the video
go with the first part then.
Yeah, let's stick with the yes. Yeah, I was top notch. My footwork was sharp, my head movement was blank and, you know, on point, and I come away with very little bruises.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah,
Aotearoa, you heard it here.
Definitely don't edit that out. Like keep that part in. We edit the other stuff. Yeah, edit the other stuff, and we'll just merge it together. But hey, there's some other stuff, cool stuff here, which I wanted to touch on and just share with you. So obviously we've received some really good feedback. It's been really positive and uplifting to hear that. You know, Bill's messages and words, like we had people like doctors through LinkedIn that have shared Bill's podcast link and taken away and put down, you know, things that they took away from Bill's words, which was really insightful, really powerful stuff. We've had police officers, which I won't name them on here, but guys that have that work currently and have worked in the AOS, the Armed Defenders Squad here in New Zealand. We've had civilians, we've had former soldiers, whether they be infantry or engineers or workshops, as well as ex-operators from the unit itself. Not only here, but also in Australia and stuff too. Just the support and feedback for what we're trying to do with this in the service of others, Who Dares Wins, has been phenomenal. Something that neither you or I anticipated or expected or were hoping for. Our hope was that the messages, if we could some way package them or have our guests on to share their lived experiences in their own way and in their own words, we just trusted that they would resonate with people some way, somehow. And we hoped that it would be helpful to help those people that may just need to hear that message or may just need to hear those words at that time, to know that they are not alone in terms of their struggle. If they've struggled to transition out, like I struggled, like Bill struggled, like many others we have no doubt have struggled to transition out of the unit. not taking away from those that have seemed to have done it really, really well or seamlessly and gone on and are successful in what they're doing. And that's awesome. Like, we still want to connect and hear from them because they offer another dynamic in terms of how did they do it? What did they do prior to? What were the maybe not so much building blocks, but what were the key things that they found that helped them set them up to be able to transition a lot smoother than others have? And if along the way this series can help with some healing, like it has for me, and maybe it does for others, if it can help shine a light and shed a greater perspective on just that type of lifestyle or the difficulties in relationships that come as a result, or the realities as well of those relationships that come as a result, and if it can potentially, maybe it helps inspire the next generation of those warriors that come through, because they're going to come through regardless whether they listen to this podcast or other podcasts. There's, like Bill mentioned, there was none of this stuff around when he was 7. There was none of this stuff around when I was 14. Like, people that are drawn to that life are going to have an inherent and an intrinsic desire to want to do that regardless of whether they come across this podcast or not. But at the same time, we're mindful that there may just be some of those people that they might just connect with something that they hear from one of the messages from one of our guests, and they go, far out, I know what I want to do now. That's what I want to do. And these are some of the things that I can be mindful of, because these people are putting themselves out there and sharing those experiences. What have been your thoughts around? I know you and I have shared the same thoughts of what I've just touched on there, but is there anything that you wanted to add just at the moment? And I'm going to add a couple of other things.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely support and echo exactly what you said, and it's interesting because everyone has a story, and it doesn't matter. I know we've heard, I don't have any cool stories to tell, or whatever, but it's not cool stories we're after. Yeah, we're just after your experience, because someone somewhere is or has gone through something similar.
100%.
And if they can know that they're not alone. And 2, they can leverage maybe something you've learned as you share your experience. So maybe stories is great, but probably the better expression may be your experience.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And perhaps, and so for those that are out there, they're listening in some way, or they're thinking, man, it would be really cool to come on the podcast, but don't let the but get in the way, because your experiences is valid. You're just as valid as myself, or as Joe, or Bill. Not that I've been in their space or in their league in that sense, but still valid experiences, because
100%.
It's uniquely yours. So that's one thing I took away. The other thing, one of the other things I've taken away from this is that we've done this series, Who Dares Wins in the Service of Others. And it's got a very military focus, and it's great. That's resonated with a whole bunch of people, veterans, and those outside of the military. But those lessons and those experiences you can adapt to your own situation as well.
Yeah, that's so true, man.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up, B, because like those people that I just touched on that we've received feedback from, and people keen to hear more. It's been really great. Actually, we'll use this time right now. Shout out one of the guys, Chris Webber. Chris Webber down in Wellington. You can't miss him. Catch up with him. Connect with him. Chris Webber on Instagram. He's got this massive, big beard, man. It is Skux Deluxe.
Shout out to Chris.
Shout out to Chris, the Skux Deluxe. Chris Webber, big, massive beard. He's a blinking unit too. I've seen some of his stuff on Instagram with the weights that he's lifting and how he trains. But really cool, genuine guy who's jumped on board pretty much straight away, hasn't been enjoying what he's been listening to. He's got a bunch of questions, which I won't go through those on here, but we'll definitely shout him out when we have some of the other guests, when I look to pose some of those questions that he's got. He says he's keen to get my feedback too. I will definitely give my feedback on those, maybe on a separate one. But a big shout out to Chris Webber on Instagram. Jump along, follow that guy. But yeah, grateful for his support and the feedback that he's given, and he particularly said he's really keen to hear about the New Zealand perspective, and that just brings me on to, you asked me about my experiences and what I thought of American Special Forces, British, Australia, New Zealand. And I shared mine around those. And, I think they all, like, I enjoyed my time with all of them, etc. One of the things that I've found, and just to echo and build a little bit more on what you've said, because I've shared some of this stuff with you as well, is that maybe, and I don't want to try to single out one country or anything like that, but it seems to be, my impression anyway, is that a lot of the lads here in the NZ unit, or that have served in the New Zealand SAS, are much more reserved in terms of wanting to speak about their time in the unit. And I purely believe it's not because of their lack of ability to be able to do so. It seems to me that it's primarily comes from a place of just humility, not wanting to put themselves out there, not wanting to, not because they're scared as such, but maybe like me, they were a bit worried about what people might think or have to say about them, or people might come out and say, oh, that person's just trying to blow their own trumpet, when they're not. And well, if I sound like I am, well, then too bad for those that have. But I've gotten past caring about that as an example. And so some of those things for me, they were absolutely barriers for me, because I was worried about what some person's going to say about me in the comments or whatever. And I just thought, as I reflected on that, I thought, man, how stupid have I been? Like, how stupid that is. It's like, I've been fortunate enough to serve along some great men in situations that were really stressful, dangerous, and I'm worried about what some pleb is going to say through their keyboard on the comment section. It's like, what is wrong with me? What's missing here? And so then I just thought, man, I just need to let that go. The other part for me, anyway, is that I wasn't particularly proud, or I was embarrassed to a degree about the experiences that I've had in relation to particularly not only NZ but also Australia, and the way that I chose to leave the unit. Not proud moments for me, and quite selfish and arrogant and prideful and egotistic from my side. But I've come to learn that over the years, and I needed to let go of that myself. And I know that there are other operators that have, for whatever their reasons are, they're valid for them, and I don't take anything away, just like my reasons were valid for me. In hindsight, my perception of my reasons was that I behaved pretty childishly. So I didn't need to do that. But, I guess hopefully with time and with some mature age comes hopefully some maturity, which I'm finding out about myself as I go. And go.
Sorry, bro. I was just thinking, do you think you'd still be in if you chose a different route? The way you handled that course?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. If I had gone with a better attitude, if I had gone with the attitude that I have now, like wanting to learn, like actually wanting to, okay, what can I take away from this course? Yes, all I saw was the parts of the Defence Force that I didn't like. That was all I saw. And so it was hard for me to shift that out of my head. And the other part about that, I know that was part of the army. And I think I touched on it in my interview with you, but I felt that those aspects of the drill and on the parade ground and all those other bits and pieces was only valid for basic training and core training when you're going through. I never felt it held any place once I became a soldier in the battalion, because I was like, well, I'm a soldier. I shouldn't even be on camp. Like, I should be out in the bush. Like, that's where we should be. That's my job. But I was very narrow-minded, and that was helpful to a degree in many respects with regards to going on and being fortunate to serve in those units, or to go through the New Zealand selection cycle, have a taste of that, and go to Australia and then serve. Like, definitely, the mindset approach for that was great for me, but I failed to pick up and and adapt sooner, where I could have adapted sooner, probably because of my immaturity, because of my youth at the time. So even though my youth played and had its advantages in many respects, it probably, to my own detriment, played a part in my downfall in terms of moving away. And I don't want it. No, actually, not the term downfall. My decision, my immature decision at the time to walk away from a job that I absolutely loved and still, have the greatest respect for and have felt the most fulfilled even today from serving in that unit. So, it's been a lot of great lessons. But coming back to these guys that potentially, like you said, feel like I haven't got any cool stories or whatever, 100%. It's not about that. You have these experiences, and that's a great term, great way to frame it. And what you've just mentioned, you have these experiences that are unique to you, but similar to somebody else. And coming back to, again, acknowledging Jared Tuoro, your conversation with him, the man Jared Tuoro himself,
that's right,
has been the catalyst for this. And if a professional rugby player, which I like him, like Jared Tuoro, can have on somebody like me who has no connection to any sort of professional sports, if he can have that impact on me, then I thought, and we thought, surely these stories can be positive and impactful in meaningful ways for our audience. And so that's why this has come about, and that's why this catch up, I just want to highlight some of these things. Our brothers out there that are listening to this, because we know you have been, because you've been contacting and reaching out, and I've loved reconnecting with you all. But you've got a message and a story. Some of the stuff you may not be very proud of. I understand that. And if there are boundaries, we can stay away from that. With my one, we couldn't ask, Brian and I couldn't ask people like yourselves to come onto this podcast with us in the service of others, Who Dares Wins, if I wasn't prepared to go out there and say to B, and B asked me, is there anything out of bounds? I said no. So if I wasn't, if I couldn't be prepared to go out there and talk about some of the embarrassment, some of the fear that I had, some of the childish decisions that I made, in the hopes of, if that serves somebody else to learn from that and make a better decision and see things through a different perspective or a different lens that I've been fortunate enough to attain over the last few years of my life now, then that's a great thing. That can only be a positive thing. But with that comes the risk of feeling embarrassed, feeling ashamed. What if people think this about me now? What if people say this about me? What I would say to that is, I've felt and thought about those same feelings and same things. And I guess the easiest way for me that I can put it is that it's not about me. It's about the person on the other end, the individual that might possibly be able to take something away from what not only myself, but especially the other people that we're fortunate enough and will hopefully be fortunate enough to have on this podcast can share. So like you've mentioned, Brian, like you've mentioned, it's about that one story at a time, one person at a time, one connection at a time, in terms of trying to help create a better future. And those aspects, and where we're aligned in what we're doing with this podcast, has stayed true to that, and it will continue to stay true to that with the leadership and team building series, which is going to be awesome. And it's same with this In the Service of Others, Who Dares Win series.
That's that's beautiful. I mean that sincerely, because so many thoughts are just firing off in my mind, and it's interesting. We talked about the brothers reaching out, but there's also Wahine Toa, and then the series, the interview we had with your good wife Helen, and the
she got way too much airtime, by the way.
She got way too much. I should have edited it. No, it's raw. It's raw. It's up there. But you know what? The most insightful thing that I took from that was that while you hear these experiences, these wonderful experiences like yourself and Bill have been sharing so far, and we'll get no doubt the others that will come, which are lined up to come. So stay tuned, Aotearoa. But it's the other side of that experience as well. The partners, the wives, and so forth.
100%.
The children. And that makes up the experience. And I think that's fantastic. And the other thing that you shared, just a second. It reminded me of something I saw on LinkedIn. Now, I don't know if it's true, but it sounded really cool. And I think I'll paraphrase a little bit. Something that somebody shared a quote from Denzel Washington. It said something along the lines of, again, I don't know if it's true because I haven't explored it, but something along the lines of those that have already reached the top, or something along those lines, aren't the ones that'll be criticizing you. It's the ones that haven't yet started their journey. So
that's
something similar to that.
I like that because I like that, because I guess I can sort of connect in a way to what you're saying. And the reason that I say that is because I was speaking with hopefully another potential guest. I'm going to mention his name because he said that he's keen to do it. So he's an awesome man. But maybe we'll use this as a bit of an announcement as well. So his name's Eugene Hunia. Awesome fella, awesome man. He was ex-New Zealand SAS. Then he went over and he was in the Australian one. Unfortunately, I never got to serve with him. We were in different squadrons by the time I got there. And actually, I think not long after I finished cycle in Australia and got badged, I think he not long got out after that. And then he went on to be an air marshal. And then he's gone on to do other things. And he's back here in NZ, in his hometown, in Opotiki. And him and his family run Whenua Honey. And I was speaking with him and just had a really cool conversation with him about one of our good friends, Mike, who's still working in the private security space, high risk consultancy, not bodyguarding stuff. He's different level to that in terms of what Mike does and how he works and operates. But anyway, we're talking a bit about him, and Eugene mentioned something to what you just said there about that quote. He says, "Oh yeah, it's." So I was talking about how I struggled with transition and giving him a bit of a heads up about the podcast, and really trying to say, "Man, we want you on the podcast." And then he had some really good questions, like, "What's it about? What's the objective?" And he asked me questions that I couldn't actually answer. He goes, "Oh, what's the final objective?" So I said, "Oh, actually, bro, to be honest, I don't know what the final objective is, just being honest." And he had a bit of a laugh, but I said, this is what we're finding. It's just sort of the stuff that I've already touched on with you, the amount of people that we've been able to connect with, the positive feedback that we've gotten, people that have felt uplifted and inspired. One of the AOS guys, one of the Armed Defender Squad guys, messaged me privately and said, he's got a teammate that's really struggling. And so what he's done is he's directed him to our podcast with this particular series, because he feels that it would help, because it was uplifting and positive for him. And I thought, man, there's real power in these people's stories. But sorry to divert, and I told him, so I don't have an answer. I don't know what the end state or the objective is. The objective and the mission and the vision and the purpose is to create a better future. How we will get there, I don't know, but the focus is one person at a time, one story or experience at a time, one individual at a time. And so it's the individual that's sharing, but also the other individuals that are on the receiving end, listening to that, taking and digesting what they can, and then hopefully applying it in positive ways to help them. The objective is to create a better future, but I couldn't answer his question in some sort of, I guess, a tangible way. Here's the outcome that people will get from listening to your story or my story or his story or her story, because those are intangible things because we're not there to see all of that stuff from my perspective. But with regards to what he is talking about, and said, it is hard, it can be hard when you've reached the top of the mountain, so to speak, in our experience. And so for the top of the mountain for us at that time, and for me, was the SAS. That's the top of the mountain. There's nothing better in my mind at that time. So your quote that you've just shared, it can then be hard. And Eugene said this, he said, well, it's once you've done that, it's well, what else is there? What next? Everything else, almost everything else, seems to be not as desirable to a degree, if that makes sense. It's not as important. I'm not as committed to it. So what I've found in doing this with you, and I shared with you, and I you know what, I didn't acknowledge it as well as what I should have. So I'm going to do that now. The podcasting, I talked about and touched on it when you first interviewed me for the Epic Aotearoa. What really brought me out, and my wife talked about this, I've never taken counselling I've never gone because I talked about, again, probably rightly or wrongly, other childish reasons. I don't want to talk about this person. I don't want to talk about this or that person. They've got their own problems, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Why would they want to listen to me? And I found all these excuses to not do it. So this, in a way, I guess, has been part of, I don't know if you'd call it counselling, but a good release, a positive release for me in terms of letting go of some of the stuff which is stuck around. But the translation, the manifestation of the positivity around it has migrated into my home. And my wife sort of alluded to that and touched on it. Like, we're a lot happier. We're a lot more connected. The kids feel probably more comfortable around me, or not probably, they feel a lot more comfortable around me. They must do, because they get cheeky to me a lot now. And I would say probably my expectations of them still haven't dropped, because my wife talked about that, like the standards, and she's right. Her standards were catered to where they were at as children. My standard of what I wanted them to do when it was time to do chores was like they were an operator in the SAS. It's like blanket heck. And I couldn't see that. Like, I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong with your kids? Why can't they clean up? When they're good, they're my kids. When they're naughty, or when they haven't done what I think they should be capable of doing, then they're her kids. So what are your kids doing? But these things, these aspects, man, has just been really helpful for me. So that Lewis Howes guy, Guy Raz, with the How I Built This, Guy Raz, and Lewis Howes School of Greatness, those two podcasts, if you don't listen to Epic Aotearoa, go and check out those ones, man. If you're struggling with stuff,
for sure.
If you are just beating yourself up, if you're giving yourself the uppercuts for no reason, if you're talking to yourself poorly, if you're in a bad headspace, whatever that is, go check out Lewis Howes School of Greatness. Go check out How I Built This, Guy Raz's stuff. And also, what I've been looking into lately, based on the back of Bill's conversation, is Dion Jensen's stuff. Man, I'm so excited. We've got him coming up next week, Monday. I'll be sitting and facilitating a conversation with him. Dion Jensen, the Lion Academy. Check him out. Go to his stuff. Sign up. Get on board. Become a member. Do that stuff.
Right.
But there are so many good people out there, good resources. And that was the catalyst. That was the inspiration for our pivot, yours and I's pivot, from a technology platform to a more, and I'm really loving this, to a more people-centric platform where we get to connect, albeit remotely, but we get to connect with people and help them share their experiences in the hopes of serving others to create a better future.
All right. Beautiful. That, I think you've summed it up perfectly, brother. That's what it's about, and it's for everyone. Male, female, ethnicity.
Yeah.
Is irrelevant. It's just that we are who we
Vaccinated or non-vaccinated is irrelevant. Is irrelevant.
Show us your certificates.
Yeah. Show us your vaccination certificate before you can come on the podcast. No discrimination here. You can be unvaccinated if you want, or vaccinated.
But just stay in your home, and then we'll stay in ours.
Yeah, and be like, can we do this face to face? Yeah, sweet. Are you vaccinated? Oh, yeah. Oh, you can't ask me that because it's privacy. I was, okay, sweet. Oh, I'll just send you the link.
I'll send you the link.
I'll send you the link, bro, and we'll go from there. But actually, that's quite funny that you mentioned that, because I guess I don't know if it's the same for everybody that's served in the Defence Force in general. I'm speaking here, but for me, when the vaccination came out, I really had no interest in getting it. I've been double jabbed, just for anybody that's interested anyway, but I've had the double jab, so has my family. But I wouldn't have got it. But the work that I do, and in this health sector, working with vulnerable people, obviously they have a much higher risk because of their immune system and stuff that they have. So we put them at risk by not being vaccinated. And initially, I was like, I'm not going to get that. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll be fine. Like, it's just a cold or whatever it is. It's a mutated cold. It was my mindset. And I'll just sweat it out if I get it. But the work and stuff, I realized from a bigger picture perspective, just for me personally, because I know everybody else has their own opinions and stuff. But I thought of the people that we're there to support. And then I thought of, far out. I've been jabbed, poked, prodded with everything else under the sun, probably with regards to my time in the Defence Force. I was like, what's another one? What's another vaccination? Like, I don't care. So Yeah, mate, I was talking about it with some of the guys who are like, oh, far out. Remember when we had to get vaccinated with anthrax before we could deploy? We were like, yeah, it came up and it was like, oh, yeah, we got the anthrax vaccination. It's like, what? I don't want that. And then they said, this is while we were still serving in the unit, in the Australian unit at the time. Then they're like, well, you can't deploy if you don't get it. I was like, yeah, all good. Okay, whereabouts do you want it? Yeah. Okay, give me two. Give me 2 jabs then. Yeah, so... Okay, so just funny, I guess the switch in the mindset. I was like, oh, well, you can't deploy if you don't get it. Oh, yeah, no, sweet, give me that then. Give me, yeah, all good, yeah, here we go. So, yeah, hard case. But this one wasn't anything like that. But when I thought about the COVID stuff, I just thought, bloody hell, we've been injected with that much stuff, like... Yeah, what's another one? And if we all turn into zombies, well, then I'll be on the zombie team or I'll be on the non-zombie team trying to survive. Whichever one of those. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But, man, it's been interesting in terms of some of the fallout that's happening around this COVID stuff. But I don't want to get into that. I was going to talk about... So, with you, this has been the catch-up. Yes, we've got the new leadership and team building series, which we're going to be working on. Brian's going to be leading that. I'm going to continue reaching out to these people. Eugene Hunia, I've already mentioned you, bro, so you can't pull out now. So look forward to having him. We've got Dion Jensen next week on Monday. And then on the back of that, we got one of the guys as well, Kane Middleton. He was a sergeant when we went through selection, and he is the other guy. So he's going to be on Monday afternoon, but he was the other guy, that passed me on that 60 clicker.
So he was the other. So yeah. Oh, okay.
He's the guy. So John McNutt, obviously, sad passing of that guy, and Bill clarified and talked about how that happened, because I think I mentioned he was in America or something, which was way off, but it happened in Kuwait, and he was part of a task force doing some work and stuff. So it was great that Bill clarified that. But Kane Middleton, really excited about having him on, man. He's another example of just that who dares wins mindset. Guy runs a motorbike shop here in Pukekohe, so we're pretty much neighbours. We're in the same area. Outrider is the name of the store. Delivers a great service, but man, he's got such a cool, like he didn't have a trade or anything like that. I think for the most part, he's just self-taught himself. He's just gone, that's what I've always wanted to do. So he's just been teaching himself, been doing it, and he's doing really well. So we're going to go do that one. I'm going to do his podcast, do a livey face-to-face in his store. Nice. Make sure we've got his Outrider signs and his bikes and stuff up in the background. Try and make that as good as we can. Want to promote his business as well, but want to get his experiences because he's got some cool stuff. I want to ask him a couple of questions, actually, which I'm going to share on here. He might listen to this before Monday. I don't know, because I'll look to post it up. But not only when he passed me on the 60 clicker, but also we were on the combat survival together in the same group, and we got bumped. So bumped meaning there was the Hunter Force came, and our group, which was significantly more than just Mids and I at the time. We had about 5 or 6 of us in our group. From memory, we got bumped. So a brief contact with the Hunter forces coming. They jumped off the trucks. We were hiding in the bushes, but then they stopped sort of in the vicinity. They're coming out to chase us. We just bomb burst and spread out. Mids and I ended up together. So we were making our way, and we still knew our RVs, and we were going. Everybody knew where they needed to be. But me and Mids were together for quite a while. And there's this part in the cycle, quite a big river in Wairu, and then on the other side was this steep embankment, and there was a home up the top on the other side, and we were starving, we were hungry, we were cold, we were blinking scrawny because we're losing all this weight, clocking up all these kilometres during the combat survival course or the escape and evasion part. In the river part, I remember we were together. I think about it now, and I said, I'll go across there. I said, let's go across there, him and I, and get up and try to go to that home, see if we can get some food or whatever, speak with the people, because there was a checkpoint just down on a bridge, which was further down by the soldiers down there. So it meant crossing this river, which was quite wide, but we felt comfortable enough that we could swim. But anyway, he didn't cross with me. He goes, well, basically, you go, and I'll wait here on the other side of the river. And then I'll let him know. And I was like, right, I was that hungry, and I was that keen to not stay where we were, because I was just like, bro, there's like tussock bushes and dirt and stones here. Over in that house, there's at least the possibility of some food and some water. Like, I suppose we could have drank the water from the river. But I said, bro, I'm going. And he goes, yeah, you go. And I'll wait here. And I was thinking, what the heck? It's like, come on, bro, you should be coming. Anyway, I crossed the river, went up. I was scurrying along the bushes along the side of the road, and there was a lady at the front of the house. She was mowing the lawn. And I was like trying to signal, and she saw me, and she was like, she waved me over, guided me in, an older lady, really lovely, and her husband wasn't there at the time, but her husband had gone out and was coming back. Anyway, she took me in around the back, and there were three of the other boys there in the shed. I was like, what the? And this is awesome. So they were being looked after by this couple, and it was so awesome. So then I said, one of my mates is still down on the other side of the river, to the lady that was at home. And so one of the other boys, he put on some of the clothes just to look like that he was part of the home, because we were in sandbags, like Hessian. We had to make our own clothing out of sandbags and stuff. So we looked like these feral blinking wombats coming out of the bush. And so anyway, he chucked on a jacket and stuff. He walked with her, and then I gave them where they were, because I just stayed sort of in the shed, and then they walked down to sort of the rough area, and then they signalled. And Mids was saying to me after, not recently, but after the cycle, they were calling out, and he was sitting on the other side, still didn't come out, and he said, there's only one guy that knows that I'm here. He goes, must be Joe. And he's like, okay. And so that's when he crossed the river and then came up. And I was like, Lincoln Eck, man, you're a sergeant, man. You should have, that's what I was thinking. You should have gone first, or you should have come with me. But it was hard case, just, it was a good memory. And we went back, we dropped off a whole bunch of stuff to that family. So this Who Dares Wins, I don't know if I should be mentioning that, but anyway, I've driven past that home in 2018-19 when I brought my family back here for a holiday while we're still living in Perth. That home is still there, but it's run down. It's not been lived in for a long, long time. But yeah, one of the boys went back and dropped off a whole bunch of stuff for them, some alcohol, some money, some chocolate, just we were really grateful that they took us in for those few hours and helped us out, because that was a huge, huge boost. But certainly, Who Dares Wins, will that happen? And is it like that? That was like the only home out in this part of the Wop Wops out in Waiouru, where we were at the time anyway. So we risked it, and thankfully they didn't dob us in. So, but yeah, good memories, man, of that course, and good people. So yeah, sorry, that just triggered a memory. Another one of these things when we're talking about these people. We're hoping to get Mark Law on the podcast. He's an awesome dude, man. It's unfortunate. There's some blanking rubbish happening at the moment with regards to WorkSafe in his business. So he's joined the New Zealand unit as a civilian, went and joined the British one, or went through selection and cycle and stuff over there. I'm not sure of all the details of what happened there. Then come back, runs his own helicopter business here. He actually flew in, shout out, Mark Law, thank you for your service and the work. Flew into White Island when all that stuff cooked off there. And was fortunate and able to save some people, putting himself and I would imagine his team at risk in doing that.
Yeah,
but
killed it, brother. Man,
he just down tools and in his chopper and straight on over, did what they said that they would do in the event of an emergency there, saved some people. And sadly, there's some sort of investigation happening through WorkSafe and around that. So I don't know all the details, but pretty average response to be doing that with somebody that's put themselves at risk to go and save others. And that's the epitome of in the service of others, Who Dares Wins, as far as we're concerned, and what he's done. So yeah, hopefully we'll have him on. We're hoping to have the legendary 11 Bats author, Harry Moffat, from the Australian Regiment. Shout out to Harry Moffat with Stoughton. So check him out on LinkedIn, follow along. The guy is awesome psychologist, author, runs his own podcast. I think it's the Mission Critical Teamcast. I forget what the I stands for. It's MCTI. But I'll have to go back and have a look. Oh, yeah, Institute. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So Mission Critical Teams Institute. So check him out, Harry Moffat. Great man, awesome guy. So looking forward to having him on the podcast. He's keen. He's just a bit under the pump at the moment. We're hoping, fingers crossed, to have Damian Lewis. He's the author of one of the latest SAS books called Bravo 30, the story that needed to be told. So he's co-authored that book, Damian Lewis, with a friend of mine, Des Powell. Both of these guys are ex-British special forces. I've never worked or served with Damian, but I was fortunate to work and serve alongside Des Powell. Legend of a man, crack up, like just a really good way about him. So it'd be great to have him on the podcast. I haven't reached out to Des, so he doesn't know, but I will be reaching out to him. I am in contact with Damian. Damian is interested and keen, but yeah, he's a bit under the pump because they've just had the book launch, and so he was recovering from that. So he's having a good time there. But it'd be so cool. There's so many other great people to have on this podcast. There's some operators that are currently serving, and I'm not going to mention their names, but that are keen to come on. One of them is the guy that I told the police joke. Asked me if I'm a policeman. He shared a funny story with me, actually. I've been in contact with him. One of the guys, I think that was doing selection, he mentioned the guy's name, but I won't mention that guy's name. He asked Jack for if he had any jokes, and he gave him a bus driver joke. It's essentially exactly the same as the police driver one, but you asked me if I'm a bus driver. And so he took on that joke. He was asked for a joke. He stood up and shared that one and goes, ask me if I'm a bus driver, staff. So I was, what? What sort of question is it? Serious, ask me if I'm a bus driver. Are you a bus driver? Nah, and sat down. and I think Jack said, the staff said, you think that's funny, do you? And I think everybody was cracking up and laughing from what Jack was saying, but he had to reply, the only appropriate response that you can give to that sort of question from a directing staff is no, staff, but he couldn't help but to still have tears, I think, coming down his eyes and a big grin on his face. So, yeah, that was a hard case. So we're hoping if all goes well that we can have the privilege and honour of having, some current serving members on there. I did offer to black out his face and change his voice. He said, yeah, black out the face, may not need to change the voice, which is cool, but we understand the sensitivity and that it may not happen, but it would be great if we have an opportunity to have live operating current serving members in the unit prepared to come on, because, man, there's some real value, and I can't put it into words enough. I respect 100% that it's not for all of them. It's not for everybody to want to come out, and it's not the natural done thing for people that have served in the unit to come out and speak about their time. But there's a real power and value in it, and that the intent is to help serve others and to create a better future, and they can still positively impact people's lives through their lived experiences. But it's going to take a heck of a lot of, it does, like speaking for myself personally, it takes a heck of a lot of courage to put yourself out there, and it's not an easy thing to do. So we'll see how we go in that space. Watch this space.
Watch the space. I like that. That's awesome. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to hearing these other experiences that you've got potentially lined up, and those that have agreed. So now that we've outed you, right?
Yeah, you know what? I might get a whole influx of, what the hell did you do that for?
What'd you do that for?
Be like, well, bro, we've been talking, man. Like, yeah. So yeah,
no, I didn't say yes.
Yeah, well,
actually, I want to talk to you.
You know what? Mark Law did not say yes, actually. So, yeah, but sorry, Mark, I've already called you out. And we generally, because it causes too much work for us to edit, we generally don't edit our stuff. So, sorry, Mark. Yeah, Mark Law has not said yes. Eugene did say yes. He said he's interested. He said, yeah, bro. He said, I'm keen. So I was like, bro, that's a yes. You said yes.
You said yes. And it's like Joe said, we don't edit a lot. Yeah. That's why you hear lawnmowers in the background.
Oh, yeah, sorry. And my fan.
Oh, sorry. Fan. There's a truck that keeps going up and down our street. It's like, man. So if you hear that, it's like, yeah. You know what? We keep it real.
Keep it real. And those of you that are complaining about it, well, hey, you're welcome to do our audio editing for us if you want.
Yeah.
So
go on, please.
Yep. If you want to complain about the audio, send us your details, and then you can fix our audio for us, and make it sound flash.
Yeah, man, I'm too busy going, how do I do? You know what? Forget that. Just
Hey, you know what? There's one final piece that I've got that I want to talk about in this catch-up, and it's to do with. I sort of touched on it when we were going through. That I've really been fortunate enough to do a whole bunch of stuff post getting out. As lost as I have been, and as much as I was struggling to find sort of value, identity, and purpose that's taken from Dion Jensen's approach and what he has, I really connect with his stuff. I think I talked about, I've been fortunate working in the not-for-profit sector, oil and gas, construction, mining, and all this other stuff, food manufacturing, to where I am now, the health space, health and fitness. There's a part there which, and I want to acknowledge now, because I saw on LinkedIn, I still consider him a good friend, even though the way that I left the business that him and I had started up together with some of our other business partners, the Mill Gym in Perth, which is still functioning and smashing right now. Shout out to the Mill Gym in Perth, Western Australia. 12 years on, and it's pumping and smashing and doing great things. Some awesome people there from what I can see. So the Mill Gym in Perth, contact them if you're interested, or if you're looking for that next level and stuff with your fitness and that sort of thing. But anyway, I was fortunate enough to sort of be a co-founder in that with Nick Caldwell. So Nick Caldwell is a former member of the Australian Special Air Service and a commando as well prior to that. Awesome man, really good man. But I saw on LinkedIn, he put up a link to an interview that he did, on, I think it was the Surfer or something's podcast on YouTube. I'll have to look that up. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I went and watched that. Man, he spoke so well. Nick spoke really well about a whole bunch of stuff. But what really, so he spoke about his experiences and stuff that he's been through, very, very private, personal stuff, because he did suffer chronic fatigue syndrome. He was diagnosed with that. He had a lot of stuff going on. But long story short, we had a bit of a falling out with regards to the Mill Gym. And and my wife touched on it. I like to think I've sort of progressed from that, but it was obviously clearly evident that I was still in that space. My wife touched on it. She said, if I am not happy somewhere, or if I think things are not the way that they should be, I'll just whatever, see you later. I don't need to stick around. And that's been really eye-opening for me to reflect on that, because I was pretty close to doing something like that again here in NZ, in the work that I'm lucky enough to do at the moment. But I'm glad that I haven't, and I've really tried to learn from that experience. But anyway, that was a similar situation that I did there with the Mill Gym, with particularly to Nick and the other co-founders, and that's on me for doing that. Now, Nick didn't talk about that at all, but what stuck out for me was how much he was going through that I didn't, and that I selfishly disregarded. I knew that he had stuff going on. I knew he had the chronic fatigue, but I didn't realize how much other stuff and what he was trying to do to overcome that, and how hard he was fighting for us to stay together, to keep that gym going. And it all credit to him, to Nick, that gym is still going strong today because of him, and no doubt because of the other business partners that he sort of mentions as well, that have come in, that have added strength and value to what he's been able to sustain, not only create, but sustain and keep going. So I've reached out to him. I'd love to have him on this podcast. I'd love to reconnect with him. We did bury the hatchet, and we caught up and face to face back in Perth a few years ago when I was able to apologise to him for my part. But still, then at that time, I didn't realise, my mind was just open so much more when I saw him sharing the stuff that he was going through. And man, I felt really disappointed in myself for the way that I acted in there. And that's not it's not something that I'm super stoked to be sharing, to be honest, but something that I think is important, because, again, I'm not the only one. I can't be the only one. And if I am, well, hey, hopefully it helps somebody else learn from this experience. But just to acknowledge Nick Caldwell on this podcast, on this catch-up right now, brother, so proud and pleased of what you are achieving and accomplishing and continuing to do. That those messages, the conversation or the interview that you had on that podcast was awesome. Really touched me. I thought and think that you're doing a fantastic job. Have the utmost respect for you, and definitely just 100%. I'd rather apologize to him again in person, like through the podcast. But yeah, sorry, brother, for leaving you and the other guys in that space at the time. But you have taken it on. You took it on yourself. And you've been the reason why that place, why the Mill Gym is so successful, and everything else that you're doing with the other business ventures and stuff that you're involved in. So he's a great man, him and his wife. And I'm not sure how many children they've got, but I know that they did have one child before I left Perth. But great couple, great man. And hopefully I'll have the privilege of connecting with him on the podcast, because he's got some cool stories, man. He'd be a great guest on the pod. So I'm going to share this link with him once I upload it, and I'll just tell him it's at the end, and he can just skip to the end if he wants. So
forget all the other stuff.
Yeah. Forget all the other stuff, bro. Just skip to the end. Sorry for what happened, but yeah, genuinely, man, I'll try to post the link to his interview that he had as well when I do the notes and stuff, and put this up on YouTube and that sort of thing for our catch up. So nice. We'll then people can go over and check him out on there. So yeah, that'd be cool.
I like it.
That's all I've got, bro, for this catch up. I think we've covered a bit of ground. Hopefully we've been able to resonate with some of those people that have maybe been a bit apprehensive, maybe been maybe doubting themselves. Man, I love what you said, B. They've all got a story. They've all got these experiences, and everybody's experiences are valid. And we want to hear them. We want you to share them.
Yeah.
It's going to take some courage. It's going to take maybe some getting over yourselves, or getting over ourselves a little bit. And it's going to take a bit of some thick skin, maybe, if there are some idiots that decide they want to criticize you sharing some of those experiences. What I can say is both Brian and I, and the vast majority, and what we've experienced so far, has been positive, has been supportive, and we would continue to support you on that journey and helping others through your experiences to be able to take away what they can and apply them in their own lives in positive ways.
Agreed. Definitely 1,000,000% agree.
Awesome, brother. Well, I will. We'll finish this up, and then I'll let you get back to your family.
Likewise.
Yeah, awesome, brother. Well, thanks, B. Appreciate catching up with you, man. Aotearoa New Zealand, thank you for your time. If you've joined us and managed to stop by here and stick around for this hour and 12 minutes and counting session, well done. Good work.
Well done.
Let us know in the comments if you managed to stay for the whole time, and give us any feedback. And we appreciate your support as always. Very, very grateful to connect with you. And those of you that are listening, that are thinking about it, again, the invitation is there for you. It's an open invitation, particularly for those that have been invited so far. There is no expiry date on it. So get in touch. We'll be here listening out. And respectfully, as always, who dares wins. Stop.